Welcome to Pop Your Shit. Girl, I love it. First of all, I've been looking forward to this interview. I woke up this morning like 7. I was like, okay, girl, what we gonna ask her? I said, do I just let her go? Because
I don't know if that's a good idea. You already know how I am.
welcome. I appreciate you coming on to my podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So, ma'am, let's go. Let's just go. 12 days. 12 nights. Is it 12 days or 12 nights? 12 nights.
12 nights.
12 nights won't be out. What made you write a dark romance for Christmas?
I like light and fluffy stuff. Like, I will always like light and fluffy stuff, but there's other aspects of, my personality that I really enjoy. And there's all these things that I want to do and all these things I want to talk about. But one of the things that, I was always obsessed with and will always be obsessed with is crime, right? And I'm not talking about the podcasts that the girlies like to listen to now. I'm talking about I used to be obsessed with Olivia and Elliot. I used to just be about that Law and Order life. And then I watched every single episode of Criminal Minds. And then I just devoured anything that had to do with crime, whether that was real stuff that I was investigating on Wikipedia, or watching these documentaries about, or the fictional stuff, right? And so for me, I was I wanted to dive a little bit more into that. And I think I wanted to kind of see and evaluate how I could make something like that make sense, but also I wanted to make someone challenge that person in a different way, and
Right.
have them complement each other with their own gray darkness.
Right. But when I tell you I ate that up real quick, I ate that up. All your books I have eaten up real
Oh,
quick.
thank you. And there will be more dark stuff coming. I'm not even gonna hold you. I was sitting here kicking my feet the entire time. So I'm gonna be doing it again.
Ma'am, ma'am, Miss Arthur, ma'am. Miss, I listen. I was ready. I was coming on. Listen, I was ready for you because listen, you deserve this hat, huh? You deserve this hat, like for real. You
Oh,
came out the gate swinging.
thank you.
First of all, the ladies, the just a taste. Who knew? Who knew? A workplace romance can be so steamy.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I really I don't know if you've read any of the author's notes at the end of these books, but it really did genuinely come to life on Bart. It was probably a month after I had had a holiday party that was very similar to the party that Denise was at.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about how ridiculous it all was. And I hadn't even really been writing like that. So I wrote a lot when I came back after I got my master's, but then I just went full on into corporate America, and it kind of lost it, right? And then for, reasons, I picked everything kind of back up. And as I was picking everything back up, I saw this little steam that I had written about this holiday party. And I was as much as I love my sci-fi fantasy, that's my bag. I've always I have completed novels over there that are sci-fi fantasy and paranormal, right? And those were the things that I did when I was getting my master's degree. And when I was getting my undergrad, that was what I wrote. And what kind of fascinated me was I was in this space that a lot of people have never been in. And these people were acting like straight up animals, weirdos, just crazy. And it's just it genuinely feels like you're on a different planet because you're surrounded by all this opulence and all this wealth. And these people are fighting over candy. It's just batshit crazy. And to me, I was wait, I really love creating these worlds and building these things, but building worlds and all that stuff takes time. And so I was I could do this. Like, it's not too far off that I can like build it super quickly and still have that idea of this like totally different world disconnected from reality a little bit, but simultaneously still have time to make and do the stuff that I like.
Man. So Walter and Denise.
Wait, come on, your Denise just admitted. Wow, I wish. I wish somebody was, you know what? Don't even get me started, Olivia. It's too early. Let me drink the rest of my class first.
Are we Denise?
No.
Uh,
I
is
don't even know
Denise?
if I'd want to be Denise.
It's,
Jesus.
but why not? She got served, ma'am, served well.
She did. She did. I think I think personally, I don't know if I would want somebody in my face being that aggressive. I don't know if that's necessarily my style. But one thing that is reflected in Denise that is true for me is the anxiety aspect of it. Like, I definitely suffer from anxiety. I've had anxiety attacks. I've had panic attacks. And for me, having that kind of show up, especially in that type of professional environment, was really important because when you have these types of mental health issues, they do come out of like nowhere. And to be able to kind of showcase how somebody might deal with that in a workplace setting, I think was really important.
So reading your books, and I was like, Bart, and I was like, San Francisco. I was like, are you a Bay Area girlie? You was like, no, I'm from LA, but I now live in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I've been up here since 2021.
Man, we're trying to build a community. And as you know, as you know, but I was like, hold on, we got others up here and I didn't know.
Right? I'm like, where is everybody at? Everybody's either in LA or on the East Coast. I'm like, well, what about us over here?
Well, there's another author that I just found out the other day, Arville
Oh,
Braintree.
oh, I did not know that she lived up here. Did I not? I don't think I knew that.
I didn't either.
That's crazy because I know Alicia lives up here because we were talking about it one time, but I didn't realize that Aria lived.
Alicia who?
Alicia, I don't know her last name, but she's a book talker.
I didn't know that.
SHA. Yeah, because she was at some event in Sacramento, and I was like, oh, that's up here.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, look at us trying to build community up in this Northern California streets. And Juju, one hell of a lady, she's in, I think, Stockton.
Oh, got you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Mm-hmm.
all like
Mm-hmm.
close-ish.
We're closest. I mean, it's not like it's a little bit of drive, but it's doable.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned that you have sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
books and paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they? And why are they not out?
Okay, so backwards. I have already had my midlife crisis, and um, that kind of woke me up to where I am in my life and like what I was prioritizing. Just as a human being, like I was very much so cog in the machine, just doing whatever I needed to do to exist and survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was hard for me to flip that switch off once things started to go better. So I was still just like a freight train. And when I had a health complication from a surgery that I had, it was like I was able to look around and take stock of what was around me. And I was like, look, like this is not what I want to be written on my tombstone. That I worked, that I was nice, that I made jokes sometimes, and that was it, right? And so that's when I kind of took a step back, and that year kind of became my year of rediscovery. So 2023 was a wild time for me for various reasons. And so I had to legitimately take a step back and like think about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to reprioritize in my life, because I had that moment kind of sort of during the pandemic, which I think a lot of us did, where we took a step back and we're like, hey, why are we doing all of this only for like the world to be ending, right?
Exactly.
And so I think we all kind of were forced to get back into that capitalism mindset. And so did I. Like I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to be working like I was before. I was doing like 17, 18-hour days. I was always the first one into the office, always the first one, always the last one to leave, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to do that again. And slowly but surely, I started to fall back into those same patterns over the years. And then after, January 2023, I was like, oh, no, no, for real, for real. Like, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to focus on? And all of those books that I had written, some of them is, some of them are, some of them are, oh, I lost my whole train of thought. Sorry. Um, some of them,
You were talking about
oh, so the books of that, so some of those
right.
books I had written were during my grad school years, right? So
Right.
the paranormal book I wrote when I was 17. And it's a big boy. The thing is like 100,000 words, right? And so that kind of was what motivated me to think about writing in a little bit more of a specific way. And then for the book that I wrote during my MFA, that started based off of a prompt that I really enjoyed about this big giant portal in the middle of the wilderness somewhere. And so those two books are there, they exist. I'm slowly picking them back up, but the problem that I had is that for me right now, contemporary romance feels easier, and it was kind of like my gateway drug, right? It's like I can write all this stuff and get into my groove, and then I can go back to those more heavy books that require like editing and a lot more world building, and then I'll get back into those.
So,
And so
but we
those
will see
will
them.
you'll see them eventually. Yes. I don't want to give any like specific dates around it because then I will force myself to get it done by that date and I'll stress myself out. But they will exist. They will exist. One of them is like vampires and fae, and then the other is so I'm gonna say the premise, and I think it's gonna make you guys yell at me for where it's at. So essentially it's urban fantasy, and there is a split between, so if you look at history, and I'm like the history, okay, so I in my undergrad I had minors in psychology, history, performing arts, and creative writing. Like those were my minors on top of my English degree. And so for me, like I've always been fascinated by learning things, ingesting things, and just being like, what is all of this, right? And so when I'm looking at all of this like mythology and all this ancient history, it's fascinating to me to see how many of these stories overlap. And so you're just kind of like, how, why these people couldn't have been talking to each other at that time. Like at one time, everybody was in one place and they separated out, but these stories feel too close together for how far apart these people are. And so to me, I was like, okay, so what if there was like, what if all this stuff actually existed, right? All these myths, all these legends were real, and something intentionally separated the magical world outside of the real world. And so it's just kind of like time passes differently between the two realms. And how can I like play with someone going from one end to the other? And
Right.
so that's kind of what my master's degree book is. So that one's another, I think it's like 125,000 words. And it's like an urban fantasy series about someone who's like on a hero's journey as they're crossing over and they start to realize that the barrier is starting to break. And so it's their job to make sure that the barrier doesn't break. But then, of course, it comes with, sacrifices and revelations and everything else. So that's that one.
I'm speechless. First of all, I didn't know you had all them damn minors.
Oh,
On top
yeah.
of a master's degree. On top
Um,
of
well, I think the master's degree is really funny because I love to like, if the rule isn't written down, I'm gonna probably break it and you're probably gonna make it like written down after that. So when I went to get my master's degree, I was supposed to choose a lane. And I was just like, huh, do I have to choose a lane? Like, where is it written down that I have to choose a lane? And they didn't say like choose a lane and you have to pick one. So my master's degree is both in screenwriting and in fiction writing. And so that to me is like, because I really enjoy dialogue and like creating all these worlds. And so I have like scripts, and I have, a mini series that's based around kind of sort of, I don't know if anybody has ever watched Battlestar Galactica, but the mini series is kind of based off of this idea that the human beings explore space and they get really far off and then they lose track of who they were. But then you start to realize that it was intentional because of all the bad shit that human beings were doing on Earth. And it's just like, for me, it's just like playing with all these like philosophical ideas. But I also at the same time really enjoy, creating, these relationships and having and building like love and all these other things. And so that to me is like also important. But there's just so much that I want to do in my brain. And again, that goes back to this whole idea of like, I had my midlife crisis and I'm like, what am I actually doing? I have all these things that I want to say, I have all these things that I want to do, and I'm just sitting here working in corporate America and slaving. So,
I just coined you author badass.
oh, thanks.
I'm like, ma'am, are you effing kidding me? I'm over here in shock. Not that you can't do it, but it's done and you've done it. You I need that paranormal. Um I need all the books. I know that that's your lane, and you're good at contemporary romance and erotica and all of that. You're very good at dark romance. I need all of them. I need to be able to say, I met her, I like her, and I know her. My friend is an author. He's a screenwriter.
And it's so fun. Like, we were talking about this in one of our group chats, but like, you find these things to challenge yourself, and you're like, okay, how can I do this? And how can I do this? And then you're like, oh, I with that. Okay, let's do this next thing. And let's do this next thing. And so it's just like, that's always how my brain has been. Like, I tell people this and they always think that I'm lying, but I'm dead ass. Like, I used to read, you probably remember, do you remember Microsoft Encarta?
Mm-hmm.
I used to just go through there and just like shuffle and just read stuff. And my parents thought that I was the strangest child. Like, they thought there was something wrong with me. I swear to God. Because I like, not only that, but then they would complain that I was on the computer too much. And so then I had this, like, I don't know if you guys had them when you were in school or if you had them up here, but it was this big ass green encyclopedia. It was lime green. And I remember when they would like make me get off the computer, I would just go through like the encyclopedia and just read it. And they were like, why are you reading that? Like, there's so many books. Like I had books on books. Like, I got books on books on books. And they'd be like, but why are you reading the encyclopedia? Because I want to. I just have so many questions. I just want to understand.
We had Encyclopedia Britannica.
Ooh, yeah.
And then we had a different encyclopedia, the World Encyclopedia or something like that. I can't remember. It was brown. But I don't recall a green one. Maybe I might have been out of school. Like, I'm a few years older. So it might have been when I was out of school. My sister got caught with that. But I
like so much.
You know what, ma'am? I would just love to just take a day and just go through your brain. Fascinating.
I don't know if you want to be in there.
Child. Let's talk about Walter and Denise for just a second.
Yeah.
Why was Walter in the bathroom just doing?
Oh, God. Hugh. Why was? Oh shit! What did I do? What did I do? Oh, Hugh. So why was Hugh in the bathroom? I think he saw that his friend was in distress, but I think simultaneously he was probably watching her all night and seeing how her frustration was growing, right? And like, if you truly care about somebody, whether you want to bang their brains out or whether you like want to be their friend, like watching someone watch the door, knowing that somebody is supposed to be there and they show up really, really late, and then seeing them like talk to, frankly, like the worst person that they could probably talk to in the room. Like, I think he knew that she just needed somebody to talk to and to vent, but I also think that he just wanted to make sure that she wasn't losing her cool in a corporate environment.
I was like, not be taking him to meet the, was it the mother or was it the grandmother? I
The
think it was
grandmother.
the grandmother over there, and she nervous and she making food. I was like, what is going on? Are we for real? And then he had to turn into the Incredible Hulk and handle some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, there's a couple of different things that I really wanted to weave in. I think the biggest one is that there is a little bit of a misconception within some people within the Black community that women who raise men who are, more effeminate or like less in touch with their emotions, or they're less manly, right? And so for me, I'm just like, I know men who were raised by single parents or single mothers, frankly, and they're some of like the strongest people that I know. And so I wanted to make sure that I could represent those type of people in my books. And I think, on top of that, we all have done or said things in the past that we wish that we didn't. And, I think with Hugh, he had an opportunity to kind of go back and recalibrate the
Right.
scale and become like this new version of himself. And I think to me, like that, that metamorphosis was really important, especially at the time of my life
Yes.
when I was writing that book.
Yes.
And so it was kind of like, this is what I needed to like write in that moment. And I think as I get older and the more I experience the world, the more I'm like, okay, it's not necessarily that I should be like asking the universe or asking God why all of these things are happening, but it's more like, when are these things happening? How are they happening? And what can I do to make sure that I'm in the right place at the right time where I'm supposed to be? Because I could have published anything before I published the Just a Taste series. And to me, I published that for a reason. And I'll get to a point where I realize what that reason is. And it's like, it's exciting when you get to this point where you realize that, everything happens at the time that it's supposed to happen in the way that it's supposed to happen. And you just kind of have to trust that it'll make sense eventually. And that's so relaxing. Because you're so anxious about things, and as they happen in like spurts, you're just like, oh fuck, why did this happen? Why did this happen? But like the older you get and the more you see, you're just like, okay, all these things make sense, right? Like if I'm writing a book about this thing, or I'm writing, like a poem about that thing over there, like all the things in my life make sense and line up to write those words down on that paper and to give me the understanding necessary to make that thing make sense.
One thing that I love that you did with Hugh is that Hugh had a life before he became Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you show that just because you started this way doesn't mean that you have to end this way.
Mm-hmm.
That was important for me. And I was like, she hit that shit on the head. Go, girl. Because a lot of people don't, if they start off rough, they stay rough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, or they become, and if they start off rough and they become a businessman or corporate America or whatever it is that they're doing, and they stay soft. He was
Mm-hmm.
never soft. He was soft with her, but he
Yes,
wasn't soft. He wasn't playing.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what's most important too, is like, you can compliment people in ways that they didn't really know that they needed to be complimented. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of relationships. And I don't necessarily think that, the traditional rom-coms do a really good job of showing that. I think that, sometimes like one person acquiesces a little bit too much, or someone else acquiesces too far too much. But it's just like you meet together and you like blend, and that's the way that it should be. And I think from my, like, I don't want to say myopic view, but my parents have been together for almost 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
They met when they were, 12 and 13 at a house party in Compton. And like that to me, like watching that kind of love growing up, it builds you out and it builds out your expectations in a much much different way, like
Right.
seeing how they interact with one another, seeing how they had to adjust and how they react to one another, and how they make changes with their conversations and how they approach these situations. Like that to me has given me this grand view of love. And then when I started to see all these other relationships, whether it's like my aunts and my uncles, with those are some, I'm not allowed to talk about those. I've been told already, so that's fine. Um,
You can't talk about it, but can you write about it?
I am been told I can't write about it either.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like, that's fine. Just wait. Just bide my time. Um, but like you see all these other ways that people approach relationships, and you're just like, huh. And you see this like lasting relationship that's been together for forever, and it's just like the it's very fascinating. And it gives you like a really unique view into like how you can create these relationships, and how you have to build a resilience with your characters, and how they, yeah, but yes, by my time, you know exactly what I mean. I'm not gonna say it out loud, but you know what I mean. Anyways, so you build this resilience, um, and you have to kind of like fight for each other, and not in the graphic and domestic violence way, but like you really have to like push down your interpretations of who they should be and accept that person for who they are, because that's what love is all about, ain't it?
Right. Child, when I tell you, we ate that book up. My whole book club ate the taste, just the taste. Then they, some of my book club members, and I had already planned to read your book, and then I saw that two of my members, my book club members, they read 12 Nights. They was like, wow. And I was like, let me put down everything. Let me upload and read. And I was like, I know she didn't. I know she didn't. Wait a minute. So wait, she was gone for two. Wait. So wait, he did what? That's my son was like, who are you talking to, Mom? I'm in here reading this book, but who are you talking to? I was like, don't worry about it. I know you fucking lying. That was, and he was serious. He was like, what is going on? He goes, oh, you're just reading a book. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that book was fire.
Oh, thanks.
I
I
was
really
like,
enjoyed it. I did. And so one thing I didn't mention is when I got my master's degree, I lived in London. So I was there for almost 3 years. And so to be able to like dive back into my time there, and like to remember like walking the streets, and I was looking back at some of my like old photos and videos, and I was just like, this is it was kind of like, it felt like I was coming home in a way, and I was really enjoying myself, like really enjoying myself.
so the only thing that I could not grasp was what was his name? And I cannot remember his name, the male main character. Oh, what is his name?
As
Yeah, ass. Was he black? Because he
yes,
seemed like he might have been a little light skinned. But then
he
I thought
he
he might have
was
been like Zulu warrior because he was doing some
so he was
shit.
mixed, but he wasn't as light as his dad would have wanted him to be.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I got it clear.
And so that's where the tension came from with his relationship with his father, is that his father, oh, that's nice, thanks. His father, was like, okay, like this is my child. I have to,
Right.
take care of this baby. But he came from a family that was very, all about the eugenics. And so it was kind of, it's hard. It created a disconnect for him too, because all of his money came from these people who were straight up racist.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to figure out like how he fit in, and how he could, exist in a world where his lineage was so yikesy. And I think that's also why he clings to, this style of justice as well, because he recognizes that he owes like a karmic debt.
What? And I'm trying not to give this story away because I want y'all to really go read it because I don't think you have to, just because it happened around Christmas time, it is not a Christmas story. It just happened to be
It just
that
happened to be
time
during the
of year.
holidays. Yeah.
Yes. But the Christmas presents, the butler,
Oh, the butler. I love her. Like, I had to talk myself out of giving her more lines. I'm like, no, I can't do it. It's going to be too playful. It's too much already. But the way that I had to, like, literally get up and take a break after I wrote the scene on the stairs, because I was like, this is too funny. I need to walk away. I need to take a minute. And they were just sitting there talking about curry, and he's like, please, please stop. And it was just, it was good. I loved it.
and
But
I love that the location was London. It was not necessarily here. It was something that I was able to like, oh, really? So that's what that's like.
mhm.
And had no idea you lived there. What
Yeah,
haven't you done, ma'am?
I haven't done a lot.
But you've done something.
I have. I have. I'm always thinking glass half empty when in reality my glass is more than half full. So
Okay, let's get into some of these old standard questions that I have. So I'm not going to ask you when you fell in love because you already said it. Um, you're an avid reader. Do you read as you write, or can you read and write at the same time? Other people's stuff and write your stuff.
I can, but it slows me down a lot.
Hmm.
So if I'm on like a tight deadline, then I'll like focus, and I'll usually become a little bit quieter on social media, and I'm just like trying to zone in as much as possible to get as much done as I can to meet whatever deadline it is. But I really like reading while I really like reading while I write, but it doesn't always align with my creative process.
How do you balance your 9 to 5 and your your author career?
So I'm gonna sound like a lunatic, but I will preface this by saying I just have my cats, Taggart and Rosewood. They're probably sleeping. Um, I work East Coast hours. So I start work 6:37 a.m. and I'm off by 3. And so I'll sometimes like take a break, and then I'll come sit at the computer, do, like admin stuff. If I'm like really burning, like the need is there, then I'll write until 5. I'll get up, make dinner, and my new routine, it actually makes me a lot more productive, is I'll sit here and eat and watch an episode of something. And then usually about halfway through the episode, I'll have my doc over here and I'll have ideas, and I'll just like turn whatever show off I'm watching and just work. And then I work until like 11 o'clock, and then I go to sleep and start it all over again.
Okay.
I know it's crazy, but it works really well for me, and I know I need to find a better balance. But I ain't doing shit else. I would just be sitting in the living room watching TV. I'm just sitting at the desk watching TV. It's
Well,
not good.
I mean, I'm not saying bad. I'm just saying I know a lot of people, like my aunt, she just had this heart to heart with me because she felt like she needed to.
We love when the ants do that.
So she was like, you used to be so outgoing and you used to like to go outside. Then the pandemic happened and you got immersed into what you're doing now. And I love it. But you don't come outside anymore.
There's people outside.
It's the same thing outside. And again, if y'all know, I'm from Oakland. And I know y'all know that Oakland is mini Beirut. Am I lying? It's
Don't be
not fun to go outside.
don't be fucking around in Oakland like that. Like even when I went to go see Jasmine Sullivan and Maxwell and October London at the Oakland Coliseum, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you can drive your car." I'm not driving my car over there.
But
I took my
why?
ass right on BART. I'm like, no, thank you.
Exactly. Get on BART, get over there, walk over to the Coliseum because it's right there.
It's a walk, but you'll get there
Exactly. Take your time and come on back. Put some comfortable shoes on.
for real.
But it's just not fun.
It's not.
It used to be a good time though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're not gonna get into what the government, the local government needs to do to clean up the city because it used to be a good time. But
Yeah. And like, and then if you even think about like what they do in San Francisco, which is literally just, putting lipstick on a pig.
I have an older car. They haven't. I guess my car's too old for them to bother. But anybody with a nice car, they bipping. If y'all don't know what bipping is, look it up. You ain't gonna have no windows.
You know what I do? You know what I do? Okay, so maybe like it's been like a year and some change that I've had this job that I have now. When I was getting my unemployment checks, I left because my windows are not tinted, so I left like the unemployment envelope on my seat, and then I left like the postal card, like we're hiring for the post office, right next to it. Ain't nobody bipped my car this whole time because they realize they're like, all right, she working. She got some stuff going on. She just us down on her luck as we are. And let me tell you, I ain't had nobody breaking in my car since. I'm just saying.
I'm done with you. I'm screaming. I'm screaming. That is so funny.
Hey, it seems to work. Maybe I'm delusional and they look in the car and they don't see nothing. But I mean, other people get their cars broken into all the time in my parking structure. The only bad thing that happened that I'm really annoyed about because I refuse is somebody took the tag off my license plate. And I'm like, I'm not paying for a new one. I'll just wait till I renew it. If the pops pull me over, I'm gonna pull out the little registration card and be like, here it is. I paid for it. I'm not paying you again for another sticker. So
You gotta mark it. You gotta switch related.
see, I never even like thought about doing that. So now I'm
My
gonna try
father is
now.
big on that. He was like, "You didn't do it. Let me get my box cutter."
Oh man, parents be
Let me
like,
get it.
man.
Listen, he was like, "They take we're not doing this no more. Get the box cutter." So
Yeah. And then I read that you have to pull all the old stickers off too, and all the old stickers were still on there.
it's hard.
Yeah.
That thing is on there like gorilla glue. Mm-mm. No. So it is what it is.
But I was like, yeah, go ahead, pull me over if you want to, but I'm not giving you another $30. I already gave you $340. Like, you got enough for me. You're fine. You'll be okay. I drive my car maybe like 2,000 miles a year because I don't go anywhere. Like the area of Pleasant Hill that I live in is like very like I can literally walk to most places I want to go. So I don't really even like get in my. And if I want to go anywhere further, I just get on BART because I don't have to worry about parking my car.
That is hilarious.
Pull me over if you want to, but I'm up to date. My tags are fine. Go find the motherfucker who stole it. I don't know. Talk to him. You ain't get $30 out of me. Let me tell you what. Not in this economy. What is that? That's 3 cartons of eggs.
Listen, I just got my tags and I was supposed to got them in April.
Yeah,
I don't go nowhere. It's not on my mind.
for real.
I don't drive the drive to my dad's house and back. That's 5 minutes. I
Mm-mm.
go to the store and I'm so lazy. I don't even want to go to the store. I have
And outside is ghetto. Like we've already
to.
established that. Like I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'll
Yeah.
sit here and yell at my cats and hang out with my little succulents on my patio and call it a day.
Ciao, ciao, ciao. So, what do you love about being an author, and what do you hate about it?
Mm. Um, what I love about being an author is being able to tell stories about people who look like me. I think, growing up in the 2000s and the 90s, we would be on TV, but it would always be, thin, like poised, articulate versions of us. And then the Parkers came and it became a little bit more acceptable to have, a little bit more,
A little more meat.
ghetto versions of people on TV.
Hmm.
But for the most part, like I didn't really see anybody with my personality on TV who looked like me. And I wanted to make sure that the stories that I was reflecting reflected people who look like me and who have lived experience very similar to mine. And so it's the same thing with like the books that I was reading. A lot of the books I was reading were very white centered. And the ones that were black that I was reading were centered on like the struggles of slavery and like all of these like very serious topics, which is
Mhm.
fascinating to read, but that's not something that you can use to like escape. And to me, like media, music, TV, film, like all of that is my means of escape from the reality of this simulation that we're living in. And so I really enjoy like being able to create these characters for people. And when people like hop into my inbox and they're like, oh my God, like I really love this character. I like resonated with her. Like I have anxiety and I think this was a spot on portrayal. Like that to me is worth its weight in gold. Genuinely, genuinely. It's like my favorite thing. When people are like reading and reacting in my DMs, like that is like my favorite thing in the face on the face of the planet. It's just so good for me. Um, One of the things that I don't really care for is I think the tropes conversations. Um, from my perspective, and I think that it's because I'm one of those kind of weirdo people that look that dives into like why don't I like this thing and why do I not find it fascinating? I've always been an investigative reporter, right? Like back in the days of like Winimex and LimeWire, they used to have these chats. And sometimes I would hop into chats that I absolutely should not have been in. And I would just be like hanging out in these like KKK chats because I needed to understand. I didn't understand. And I was like, this is my way of understanding why people think the way that they do and why I want to understand the intricacies of like why they believe these things. And so, like, that's always how I've been, right? And so, for me, when it comes to like reading and understanding and all these things, like, there's stuff that I just don't fuck with, but I try my best to find something within that genre or within that trope that I'm like, oh, this is not bad, right? And so, that's very much so like my perspective on things. And so, when I see people who blanket are just like, I don't fuck with this, I don't fuck with this, I'm just like, but have you really looked into it? Like, have you thought about like why specifically it is that you don't like this thing? And maybe it's like one aspect of that thing that you don't like, and some version of it could be acceptable for you. And so it's hard for me to be like, oh, you don't like do like Secret Baby, but like, what if, this thing happened? What if this thing happened? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Like, just investigate a little bit more. Just don't throw out blanket statements. And so to me, like, I think that's a hard conversation because, like, as an author, I think we have to navigate the lanes a little bit more effectively
Mhm.
and we have to be careful how we like approach these conversations with readers. But I think from my perspective, like part of the reason why there is cheating in Tempted is because I personally find cheating reprehensible. I don't know if I could forgive somebody who cheated on me. And I think that that comes from the fact that my grandfather had a whole, side family, suicide families, whatever. And, for me, it's difficult to not see how it's affected every member of my family, every member of that side family, right? And then there's all these other kids that randomly popped up, right? And so it's just like it's hard for me to fathom it, but I was like, let me dive into this and see how I can make this make sense. How can I make this thing that is terrible like logical? And so that's why I did it. And I know that some people, it rubs people the wrong way and they're like, oh my God, there's cheating in this. But it's just like, if you read it, maybe you'll understand why it happened the way that it happened. And it's not like the traditional trope itself because she like has this experience. It wakes her up and she's like, okay, I need to fix my life. And that's the thing. It's like, that's not the same as in Fatma where she's like, she has this whole ass relationship with that man under her cousin's nose. Like that's not those two, you can't, I have a hard time putting those both in the same trope because I don't feel like those are the same at all.
How hard is it to, okay, better question. How important is research when writing tropes? Because I feel like sometimes authors don't research it enough, or they're unaware that it's not clicking. How
Mhm.
important is research in even writing fiction? How important is that for you?
I think it's incredibly important. I tend to over research because I would rather have the information at my fingertips than to be, talking off the cuff about something and it completely and totally take my readers out of the book. And there's two specific situations that always come to mind when I think about people who don't research. And some of my friends have already heard me talk about this and they're just gonna be like, oh, here we fucking go. So we all have you've been in LA. You've driven through LA many a times. I was reading a book and the character had met this man for the first time and they were gonna have dinner and she was like, oh, I'll, cook for you. You can meet me at my house, right? She's in downtown LA working. Then she drives home to Santa Monica in rush hour on like a Wednesday. And then she goes into her kitchen and she makes this man tamales from scratch. And, she creates this dinner for him. One, nobody is getting from downtown LA to Santa Monica in rush hour in under 2 hours on a weekday. Like, that's just not going to fucking happen. It just doesn't happen. Second of all, making tamales from scratch requires insane prep time. First of all, you have to make sure your corn husks are soaked to the point where you can actually, fold them. You can use foil, but it doesn't taste as good, right? And then she's sitting here talking about she made them. So to fold tamales, it takes probably like an hour and a half if you're by yourself, because it's one of my favorite things to do. And then it takes like another hour and a half to cook. So you not only had a full day at work, it took you a 2-hour drive to come home, and then you came home and spent 3 hours on a meal for a man that you don't even know.
What time is it?
Please,
What time did
please,
you get off? 1 o'clock?
please, please, right? And then the second one, which I think I'm gonna throw the blame on Madonna on this one. So the second one was a book that's kind of exploded, but when I read it, it was relatively new, and it was right when I came back from the UK too, which was probably problematic all in of itself. But it was this American guy. He had moved to the UK and he was working on Canary Wharf, which is like their version of the financial district, and he'd been there for 2 years, and all of a sudden he was talking like he was in the British version of Section 8. Like, first of all, if he's in Canary Wharf, the slang he's using is not going to be the same slang that the hoodlums are using around the corner. He's not hanging out with the hoodlums. Why would he speak like a hoodlum? And I'm reading this, and I'm just like, what is even happening, right? And then there was something that I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, girl, research is your friend. Research is your friend. I can't hate. He was talking about like smoking aces, and I'm like, who fucking says that? Like, and then I think that what took the cake for me is when he started talking in a British accent. I'm like, he was there for 2 years and he suddenly has an accent. I know people who have lived in Britain for 30 years and have the same exact accent they had when they left their house. The only word that is ever different for people who move from any country into Britain is usually the word you. For whatever reason, they put like an R-ish, like slant to it. But for the most part, the whole accent stays the same. It's just like one or two words that get a little bit of a lilt to it. But like your whole entire accent doesn't change like Madonna's did, right? And so I was like, this book ain't for me. I gotta put this down. I gotta put this down.
First of
Because
all,
why you
I'm
didn't
for
research
real.
it? Why you didn't research it? And like, and to me, it's so easy, right? It's so easy. You just go into Google and you go do. It's not like when George R.R. Martin was writing the Game of Thrones series and he didn't know what a horse looked like, and he didn't have internet access to know what a horse looked like, right? So it's just like, do you care about the accuracy of what it is that you're portraying, or are you just like writing words down because you just want to tell a story? And to me, like that kills the immersion if like my reader is reading it and it becomes an issue. And actually, I'm going to bring this up because I think it's really pertinent. So today I learned that it is a very much so LA thing. It's a California thing, but it's also an LA thing to call like corner stores liquor stores. I learned this because I was talking to Olivia and she's like, she went to the liquor store, but she didn't buy liquor. And I'm like, wait, is that like a weird California thing? Apparently it's just an LA thing to call all of the corner stores liquor stores. And I'm like,
oh, that's a California thing.
Yeah. And I'm just like, that's interesting. So like liquor stores are actually like full on, like you can't go in there if you're not above 21, like liquor stores. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Like I used to go to the liquor store down the street all the time to get a candy bar and like a fucking ice cream. And I'm like, oh.
And he was like, why are the kids going to the liquor store? Basically, it's the corner store.
It's the same as like when you like you learn all of like the weird like liquor laws that are in the country, and it's like you can only buy liquor at this one place at this one time, and they're closed on this day and this day. Why? It's just alcohol.
You know what? One thing that bugs me is when you're writing Northern California, and you know one word that most Northern Californians use is hella.
Mm-hmm.
And they was like, oh, she's hell. And it's like, that's not how we talk. We say hella. Even my father says hella.
Mm-mm. But that's the thing is like, and if you know that, it's going to destroy your immersion. And some people can get over it. They can just gloss over it and create their own version of the book that they're reading. But for some people, it like stops them. And for me, it will stop me. And so I'm just like, as much as I can, I try and research the hell out of whatever it is that I'm writing to make sure that it makes sense.
Right. Especially when you're writing dialogue texts, you want it to sound authentic to the area in which you're writing to. Absolutely. Unless you made up the area.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is funny. Do you have any book husbands, book boyfriends? And who you slide with? So who's a book husband for you? You can pick anybody out of your catalog or someone else's. Please don't say Shane.
I really was about to say Shane though. That's fine.
No, you can say it. It's fine. I know who I'm true to.
So probably Shane, for sure. I think also, I would probably say Smoke from Demon's Dream, just because he's like the right type of chaotic for me. Everybody always talks about Demon. I'm like, no, I want Smoke. Thanks though. Who else? Now you put me on the spot. Like I'm trying to think.
So these are husbands or boyfriends?
Boyfriends.
Okay. Do you have a book husband?
Probably Oz. I think Oz would be my book husband.
Really? From Products of the Streets?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. My that shit ass crazy too. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, and I really like Az. I think that he's really unique and he's different. And as much as I love Hugh, like I think I like the Law and Order vibe that Az gives off. But I mean, my answers change on a daily basis. Like
mine too. It changes weekly. My favorite authors change weekly. So just because you're not in the number this week, next week you probably in the word, or you was in it last week. So that's hilarious. Who you sliding with?
Can I just say all the men from Product of the Streets and then all of Olivia's men together? Because that would be great. Well, separately. I don't know if they'd mix well. But I think also like all the men from The Oath, that would be really fun and exciting. Um, but yeah, I think for me, definitely, I definitely want to go behind the curtain.
Listen, I'm trying to go to the other side.
I want to see. I want to see what's going on over there.
um,
See, Jay and Shane. Can I just be a Jay and Shane sandwich? Like I don't even need Remy. Like if I could just have the two, I'd be okay with that.
I am screaming. um, so I've been asking this question, but not really on pop your shit. So I'm going to ask you, and I might have asked it yesterday. What is your idea of urban fiction?
To me, urban fiction it it encompasses a different type of lifestyle. And so I kind of struggled with this when I first started because I feel like I kind of grew up like adjacent to the ghetto. Like I lived in the suburbs, but there were definitely hoodlums everywhere. And, I was very separated from that because I was always reading a book or I was just like always in the house watching TV. And even when I was forced to go outside, like I was just like a satellite along all of these different types of like communities and conversations. And so for me, like when I think of like urban fic, that's what I think of. I think of all these conversations. I think of people who are dealing. I think of, there's usually criminal activity involved. There's usually murder and mayhem and like running around and acting crazy. Whereas contemporary is just kind of like run of the mill, like day by day life. And so I think what often gets conflated is this idea that urban is just automatically black. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case, especially well from my perspective specifically. And I think we just have to, I think it's up to the readers to kind of decide like what their interpretations are. But from my perspective, like I wouldn't really consider my books urban. I think maybe they kind of like dance along the edges a little bit when we're talking about, Hugh's past and like some of the stuff that Az is doing could be considered urban, but I think it's like, it's not necessarily something that fits neatly into that category.
What is your definition of the great American novel? Your definition, not society's.
I think the great American novels are like the ones that really truly talk to you about like the experience and they leave a lasting impression and make you think about it. And the one that immediately comes to mind is, oh, I'm really going to forget the name of it right now. That's fine. Um, Invisible Man by, is it Ellison?
Yes.
And I remember reading that book and being like, this book sucks. And I wasn't necessarily in a place to really appreciate it because I was in the middle of that exact transition. And so it wasn't even like I I could see myself and like my experiences in that book. It just made me angry because that transition from going from like the community that you're existing in and you're living in into like the real world and seeing how it really portrays you and how it sees you and how it others you, it was heavy. And at the time, I wasn't about that life. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I think, like when I think about the great American novel, I think about things that, that stand the test of time, that talk about, these experiences and all of these lives that people are really and truly living out here. And I think that, frankly, to me, that has to be pulled apart from the white gaze because the thing that I think really shakes up literature is when we're looking at these stories and all these people and we're pulling apart like the classism and the racism and we're like looking at the people who are actually living these lives day in and day out. Mm-hmm. And to me, like Invisible Man is everything about like how people of color have to kind of like chip away at themselves in order to fully embrace and ingratiate themselves into the world around them, or it'll eat them up.
I agree with that. I agree that we dumb ourselves down to fit societal norms when we are exceptional. I agree with that statement. I agree with the Invisible Man being one of the great. I agree with that.
And I think what's fascinating too is like we all enter into, these perspectives and as we grow and change and evolve, we start to see the world in all these different ways. And it changes how we like read things. And I think that's one of the most fun things to do, especially with these novels that stand the test of time, is to read it in your 20s, to read it in your 30s, to read it in your 40s, and to see all of these intricacies that you couldn't really catch before, or be like, oh, I thought that this was one way, but then I'm like reading it and I feel like it's something else. And I think that that's really what's the most fun about art, is that it's subjective and that your opinions on it can change based on what you've gone through in life.
I think one of my favorites, and I would consider this a great American novel, is um, The American Marriage. And I cannot
Mm,
tell you the name of the author. It escapes me right now, but it deals with a marriage, and they have this thing where they have uh, to cool off, and then everybody has, I think, 10 minutes to talk, no interruptions, and they
mm,
decided to separate and divorce. And she got the love which she wanted, and he got the love that she wanted. It didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to be,
mm-hmm,
and everybody ended up being happy, but they
mm,
had to the process in which they had to get there was, it was utterly crazy. And
mm-hmm,
because it pulled so much emotion out of me, I felt like this is my idea of the great American novel. I don't think it's what society picks,
mm-hmm.
because it's, again, it's us.
Yeah,
But the writing for me was exceptional.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
um, what is one thing that your readers, not your friends, because they probably already know, but your readers will be shocked to know about you?
Um,
And don't tell me you shy, because you're not.
Here we go. Uh, I am shy. Um, I think my go-to is that when I started my undergrad, I needed an extra unit, and I ended up taking opera and really liking it. So I sang opera for 2 or 3 years, and then I switched to jazz, and then I transitioned from jazz into doing theater at the same time. So it's like three totally different mediums. And like I always really enjoyed singing and like loved singing, and being able to both like master these languages, because I think I can sing like 7 or 8 of them, and then go from something that's very specific and precise to something that is very much so not precise, and it's all about, improvisation and like all of these like vocal trills and tricks, and then going from that to theater. It was just like, it was really fun. But that's, I think, something that my readers probably don't know about.
My mouth is open. You can sing.
A little bit. A little bit.
I'm not gonna ask you to bust a tune right now, but you're gonna bust a tune. One day you're gonna have to sing for me.
Well, you know what's actually really fascinating about this? So, when I was in undergrad, not only was like my opera singer trying to get me to like take it seriously, and of course I was like, my daddy sent me here to learn not to sing. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I love that you believe in me, but girl, like, it's not for me. And it's the same thing with theater, right? Like, I had that like moment of like stage fright, but I think with theater, you're on the stage with a bunch of different people, and you've rehearsed it so many times that you don't really have the space to feel nervous, because you got it, like you've been doing it for so long. And so like I was really enjoying it, and I was having a good time. And then there was a moment where, and I want to preface this in case anybody is watching this actually knows me in real life. Um, I was the understudy for Sally in um, Cabaret. Whew, that word just lost my. Anyways, I was understudy for Sally in Cabaret, and during the cast party after we wrapped, someone came up to me and they were like, "Yo, I just want you to know that we all believe that you could have done Sally." The choreographer at the time had choreography in her mind, and it wouldn't have worked with somebody with your body type. And I was crushed. I was crushed because, like, the entire run, everybody was looking at me like, why the fuck are you not Sally? Like, what is actually going on? And I was just like, oh, I'm busy. It's my last year. I'm taking 21 units. I don't really have the time. Like, it's fine. I'm filming on the weekends. Like, I don't have the space, the bandwidth, whatever. But I mean, my feelings were obviously hurt. And then to hear that, I was just like, oh, like that pipe dream that I had of maybe like going into like theater or maybe even like thinking about acting a little bit. I was just like, ugh, I can't fuck with it. So I like took a step back, and that's when I started to focus on writing a little bit more. And I think everything, happens for a reason, because now that I've been doing this for a while, I have noticed that it's had like more of an effect on my life than I ever expected it to. And the reason why I say that is I have always had like horrendous stage fright, like really bad. And even like doing karaoke stuff, like it's always been like very terrifying for me. And then I went to a karaoke bar in October for a friend's birthday, and I actually got up and sang Four Non Blondes, What's Up? And it was the best I have ever sung that song in my life. And like it was a room full of people, and like normally when I get stage fright, like it chops my register in half, so I can't hit my notes and I can't be taking my breaths the way I need to, and I get so pent up and nervous. But boy, it just felt comfortable. And it was like I got to this place because I'm on here all the time. I'm talking with people, I'm interacting with the readers, and I feel more comfortable with myself. And that then resonates with like other areas of my life. And I just didn't expect for all of these things to kind of like coalesce in the way that they have. But I think it's like a really beautiful experience. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, is like all this stuff puts you in the place that you need to be in and gives you the tools in your toolbox that you need in order to live life in a more fulfilling way. And I think that it's incredibly exciting to like know that you're on the right path, because all of these things start to kind of like open up.
Ma'am. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I'm not playing with you today. I'm not playing with you no more, never.